So you mentioned about agile coach. These days, so many people put that in the title. And it's not just agile coach. It could be like personal coach, life coach, whatever trainer coach. But the first thing that I would like to clarify with you, since you have done it so many years, what is the definition of coaching actually? So many people use the other terms like mentoring. What are the difference actually, if there's any? So what is your definition of coaching?
It's a good question. One of the things I anchored on in the book, so people get confused. Another reason I wrote the book is there's confusion in industry. There's something called professional coaching. There's the International Coaching Federation, and they have training and certificate, and it's a wonderful body. Professional coaching is sort of like counseling, if you want to think about that. It's asking questions. Basically, if you want to think about professional coaching, you never ever give anyone advice, or you don't tell them what to do. You help them to discover their journey. So there's the notion in professional coaching of asking powerful questions so that your coaching client, whether it's an individual or a team, you could coach a group, a scrum team or whatever, you're asking questions and it's their agenda. So there's rules for professional coaching. Agile coaching is a superset of professional coaching. The model that I've anchored on is something called the Agile Coaching Growth Wheel. The Agile Coaching Growth Wheel has multiple stances or multiple postures or multiple instances of like, how do you show up as a coach? One of them is professional coaching, if that makes sense. So what I just described as professional coaching is a subset of Agile coaching. Another subset, I'm going to call them, Henry, stances or competencies. So competencies and stances, but I like the word stance because it's like a posture. So professional coaching is one posture. You mentioned one. Mentoring is another posture. If I'm coaching people, I could mentor them. Another posture is training. I can teach them. And they're different. To me, mentoring is showing and partnering with. Maybe apprenticeship. To me, pairing and apprenticeship is a mentoring stance, if you will. And then teaching is raw teaching, going through a class or literally directing someone with knowledge. There's two more stances. In the wheel, both of mentoring and teaching is called guided learning. Another stance is facilitating workshops, facilitating meetings, being a good facilitator. That's an art in and of itself, is facilitating a meeting to a good outcome. There's a myriad of tools. And nowadays, Miro and facilitation boards are wonderful ways you can do it virtually. So being artful there. Another stance that was new to the wheel is advising, providing advice or consulting. Or dare I say it, telling someone what to do, Henry. You know what I mean? Like do it this way, being a bit more prescriptive. Can you see the challenge with an Agile coach is picking in service to the client, in serving whoever you're coaching, what is their agenda, but then showing up in a different stance based on what they need. Now, I call it dancing in the stances, or I think of it as dancing. I'm not a dancer. Clearly, if you saw the rest of my body, I'm not a dancer. I'm not very nimble, but I'm mentally nimble. So in my mind, it's like dance with the client. So I may start out with asking them questions. I might start out in coaching stance. I hope this is helping. And then if I determine that they need to be taught something, then I would switch to teaching stance. If I see that the class isn't landing, I might switch to mentoring stance and show them how to do it. And then I might go back to professional coaching and ask them, how did that go? How did it land for you? And how do I make it better? So everyone, what I just did is that was Agile coaching in that I switched stances, if that makes sense, in service to my client. Did that help?
Yeah, certainly. So obviously I'm trying to make it less abstract. So you mentioned about coaching stances, things like advising, guided learnings, things like teaching, mentoring, leading also, I think. Leading people, show them how to do it, facilitating. So thanks for sharing all the instances. I have one interest when you mentioned in the beginning about professional coaching. It's not necessarily just telling the clients, but actually asking questions so that the clients know how to solve their own problem. It's not the coach agenda. So this, I think, is the probably distinguishing character between a good coach versus a normal or bad coach. Tell us more, how can leaders be more in this kind of mode? Because I think leaders has very crucial role in every team. And their role, one of it is to coach, not necessarily always to make decisions. How can a leader show in this kind of asking question mode rather than always directing?
I actually think that leaders need to be Agile coaches. Now, I'll explain what I mean by that. So one of my biggest regrets in the book is, I have many regrets. The minute that you hit code freeze, the minute you hit freeze and you publish a book, at least for me, I reflected, I'm like, oh, I made some mistakes. I wish I would have changed that. So the title, we talked about the title before. It has agile coaching in the title. And it almost seems like the book, if you look at it on the surface, the book is focused to agile coaches. Henry, I'm sure you read it that way. Oh, this is a book for agile coaches. And it's a big mistake on my part. What I wish I would have done somehow is communicated that this is a book of coaching skills. And I think anyone could benefit. So I'm not trying to turn leaders into agile coaches. What I'm trying to say is be aware of coaching competencies. Become more aware of coaching competencies and coaching skills, and realize that in order to be a more effective leader, you need to be a coach. Done. Period. And it's not a professional coach, it's an agile coach. And what I mean by that is you're not becoming an agile coach by your business card, but all of those stances I talked about, if you're serving the people in your team, sometimes the right thing to do is not ask them questions, Henry. Does that make sense? What if they don't have the answer? What if they don't know? What if they desperately need to be taught and you just keep asking questions? Well, how do you think you should do that? I call it death by 1,000 questions. So professional coaching is appropriate as long as it's the right stance in the situation to serve whoever you're coaching. So what I want is leaders, managers, directors, senior execs. I think if you want to become a better leader, then I think one of your core skills, not technical skills, but core skills should be coaching skills. And if you look at the world in that way, then the book can be very helpful. And then the wheel is very helpful because then start looking at yourself. Like sometimes you have to lead. In fact, if you looked at the wheel, Henry, in the middle of the wheel is something called self-mastery. Doesn't that align with what we talked about earlier, that agile leadership or leadership is an inside-out job? It parallels that wonderfully. So if you want to be a better coach, it starts by, are you coachable? Are you learning yourself? Are you a good role model? I think there's a wonderful connection between coaching, not agile coaching, the business card or the title, but agile coaching competencies and skills in a well-rounded way to leadership effectiveness. So how do you start that? You look at the wheel, you assess yourself, you assess your strengths. I'm sure some leaders are stronger in some stances than others. That's fantastic. Assess your weaknesses and then start to relentlessly improve yourself. In fact, I would say it starts at you are a coach. So anyone who's listening to this and you're a technical leader, I have some really bad news for you. Whether you like it or not, you are a coach. So suck it up, accept that. And now if you are coaching people, you're not coaching algorithms. You're coaching people, you're coaching teams, you're coaching peers, and you're coaching the leaders of the ecosystem around you. Whether you like it or not. I mean, you're coaching it just by showing up and role modeling. So you're coaching even when you don't know it. So take control of that and become a better coach. Become curious about coaching. And I think that'll make you a better leader.